Hi, I'm Daniel, and I won a reading competition in the fifth grade, even though I was very sick and had no voice at all at the beginning of the morning.
So yes, hello everyone. That's Daniel Mendes Jenner. He's a senior at Leuphana University in Lüneburg. Leuphana for short is how I'll be referring to it for the rest of today's conversation, which is in Germany, and he has a very interesting major of global environmental and sustainability studies. Today we'll just be hearing more from Daniel about the choices he's made, the lessons he's learned along the way, as well as some interesting advice and pieces of insight which he'll be sharing about this whole exciting journey of university. So, welcome to University Unraveled. I'm your host, Arya Darod. I currently study at Minerva University. Welcome, Daniel, and very excited to have you on the podcast.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much.
Perfect. I'll dive right into the conversation. I personally know just how difficult it was to set up this time because you've got a pretty packed schedule for the last couple of weeks. So I'm just curious, what have you been up to over the last couple of weeks?
Oh, actually, the last weeks were like the most interesting ones, I think, because it was very different to usually. Usually, I attend a lot of conferences and I work as a corporation manager for a leading sustainability magazine for managers here in Germany. So I tend to travel a lot. But the last 2 weeks were very special because I didn't just travel, I also had exams at my college. Like today, I will hand in the last paper of the semester. So I'm quite excited. And I also gave an interview about my last China travel. I am in a podcast today. And so it was a lot of very different stuff. I was at the Fashion Week in Berlin. First time ever. It was very funny. And so pretty full week, a lot of friends.
Lovely. What were you doing in China?
Ooh, that's a long story actually. So in 2 years ago, in 2022, I attended a program from Huawei, from the Chinese tech company. It's called Digital Seeds. And the prize for winning this hackathon was travel to China. And it was about developing sustainable ideas related to digitalization, but also sustainability. And it was basically like almost founding a startup. And as a prize, I got to go to China like 3 months ago now.
Wow. Okay. Congratulations on winning
Thank
the
you.
prize. And I'm sure the China trip was a very interesting cultural experience. It's on my bucket list to do a full trip of like 20, 30 days in China. My roommate is Chinese, so he's been inviting me for a couple of months to Beijing and Shanghai. But I'm glad you've had the experience. It seems like you're up to a lot of interesting things just over the last couple of weeks beyond university. We'll be diving a lot more into other interesting projects you're working on as we go further down this conversation. But I'll start by taking a step back and looking at the most macro decision you made as a high schooler. You had the choice of whether you wanted to stay in Germany and do university here or go abroad. I'm sure some of your friends chose to, let's say, go to US, UK, Canada, other parts of Europe. Why did you personally choose to stay back in Germany for your undergrad?
Actually, first of all, I think this might be a bit different from other countries, but a lot of my friends stayed pretty close to their hometown. So I guess like 50% of them are studying in Hamburg. I guess many people know the city. It's very beautiful. It's one of the biggest cities in Germany. And so for me, it was a decision of distance as well, because at this time I was still in a relationship. So I was thinking about something that's maybe not too far away. And actually, at the first time I checked the website of Leuphana, I wasn't really interested in it. And after having a very meaningful conversation with friends of my sister, this changed a lot. Maybe I can go a bit further into that because first I wanted to study business psychology. And then I had a chat with a friend of my sister. They're all already finished with their master's degree, already working for several years. And he told me, Daniel, sounds like a nice plan, but are you really sure that this is the one that is fitting for you? you've been thinking about it so many years. Are you still up to date with your decision? And he told me that it's maybe more about the skill set you learn in your study program, and that many skill sets are things that you learn in a lot of other study programs as well, like critical thinking, analytical decision making, like academia and this academic approach in general. And yeah, then I rechecked the website of Leuphana and was pretty excited when I found my study program, Global Environmental and Sustainability Studies.
Lovely. In fact, that's a perfect transition. I was just going to ask you a little more about the course itself. So you've got this very interesting course in sustainability and environmental science, touches on a lot of different subject areas. Firstly, talk to us a little more about your course itself and what it covers, and why is this course a good fit for you as a person?
So to give you a little overview, Leuphana is pretty extra in comparison to other German universities because we have a very unique approach to study. So my first semester was basically a lot of different seminars and lectures with students from all other first semester courses on campus. So we started with an opening week where we got into like little groups and peer groups that we worked with together in several projects. And after this opening week, we had all these different seminars, and we had just like 2 modules with people from our actual major. So this was very nice to get to know a lot of other people and get to know like studying in general. We had a lot of things regarding philosophy, regarding how to write term papers or an exam. So it was like learning how to study at first glance.
Wow.
And after that, we started with our major, our minor, and complementary studies. So in my major, it includes a lot of some modules like chemistry, ecology, psychology, sustainability communications, sustainability management, governance, all this kind of stuff that is related to sustainability. And in my minor, I chose business psychology again. So this time I was more focusing on human resources, on human resources management. And in my complementary studies, I can choose a lot of different modules, but I think I will go into this a bit later.
Yeah, sure. I mean, we would love to do a deep dive on your course as well, specifically a little later on the episode. But this is a good macro level, high level, brief overview. Talk to us about the university specifically, Leuphana. What makes it so unique and special as an institution compared to other German universities?
So first of all, Leuphana itself is pretty young. It's a very new university that emerged from some other colleges that were based at the same location in Lüneburg, and they decided to rebrand it, to put them together and to make something new and with a unique new approach. And the unique thing here is especially the interdisciplinarity. I'm not sure, are you aware of this term or?
Yes.
All right, but maybe for the listeners. So interdisciplinarity deals with the attempt of combining different scientific disciplines to find new solutions for more complex problems. And besides that, there's also the term of transdisciplinarity. This is also something coming up in my study program, especially, where it's not just about putting together all these scientific disciplines, but also about combining it with knowledge from society and bringing together societal stakeholders into this process so that we can really solve problems that are for the whole society, whole humanity, in a way that is really fitting to their needs and to their daily life.
Interesting. And let's dive a little deeper here. I'm going to push you one step further.
Sure.
Your interest is specifically sustainability, environmental science. In that case, why is it important for you to do a subject like philosophy or business or government? Like, what's the connection there?
So, I mean, sustainability has this issue and this strength that it's very complex. You can apply it to almost every discipline. You can apply it to every aspect of your daily life. So it makes sense to put it into context of very different political or economical areas and topics. And so it makes a lot of sense to get this broad overview about how sustainability could work regarding governance, ideas and solutions, regarding economical solutions, especially new business models and business cases for sustainability. And on the other side, having this broad overview and knowledge about other sciences like ecology and chemistry, so that we can really understand and have like this experience about what is actually the problem of each of the different sustainability issues.
Okay. That's starting to make sense in my mind. I personally feel like I have just a vague, broad understanding of what sustainability is as a field. Like if you ask me to define it, I could define the term itself. But I would love to dive a little deeper into specifically sustainability and environmental science. What are some of the topics you explore in your sustainability and environmental science courses? Like what are some of the questions you're asking?
So in my first semester, we talked a lot about like the different spheres, because I mean we have a biosphere where we're talking about all the living stuff in the world, like humans, like animals, plants, and then we're also entering like the pedosphere where we're talking about stones, rocks, how our earth and soil is constructed, because our soil is like, especially the topsoil, is like the most important thing we have regarding agriculture, regarding also CO2 emissions, because we can fix a lot of CO2, a lot of carbon in our soils. And we talked also about other things like hydrosphere, like everything dealing with the oceans, with the seas, lakes, rivers, everything that we have to know about pollution in this case, everything we have to know about this circulation in our environment that makes sure that we have rain in some areas and that other areas are not raining that much and not too wet, so that there is actually the opportunity to live and to grow crops and all the stuff. And this is like one part. On the other side, we have a lot about humanities. For example, about the integration of indigenous knowledge, about, for example, native people living in a region that are way more like precise in how to deal with nature, and they care a lot more about it. They have much better methods how to deal with their own like habitat and living conditions in a much more sustainable way. And so we were also talking about all these problems coming along with like these native local groups like disappearing more and more often at the moment, because we're not just talking about biodiversity loss, we're also talking about the loss of indigenous knowledge and languages, because every language is connected to knowledge, and every language that gets lost is also knowledge that we are losing for all humanity at all.
Yeah, that's so true. And I mean, I'm mentally, as you were speaking, I was making connections to like India and Indian culture, the different tribes that we're losing, the languages we're losing. We're definitely losing knowledge about like how to deal with nature, because they've been with the natural world. Like they don't live in modern luxury like we do, essentially. Um, I'm sure that for many people listening to this episode, the whole concept of majoring in sustainability is a new idea to them. Like, I'm not sure some people even know that this is a potential path that is actually becoming more and more lucrative. Once you graduate with this degree in sustainability and environmental science, can you visualize for us what are some potential career paths this could lead to after graduation?
So I think the first thing to start by that is talking about the scope definition, because there are like two approaches to deal in a like smart way with sustainability. First, you could be specializing on something that has nothing to do with sustainability and decide to broaden your view by adding the sustainability master degree on top. Or in my case, you're already having like this broad perspective of sustainability sciences, and now the challenge will be to specify it into a subject where I can really make a difference, so that I'm really an expert in one precise topic. So now I will be challenged by selecting one of all these possible specialization master degrees all around the world, because I definitely want to go into another country for this. And yeah, regarding job applications, I think it's really depending on your character, because you have so many options. You could go into academia and be a scientist. There are a lot of things that are still unanswered in climate science. And I talk to a lot of climate scientists because of my jobs and engagements. So there is a lot to do at the moment, especially regarding tipping points. On the other side, there are also a lot of political positions. You can lobby as responsible lobbyist for sustainability. You can work in politics in general, in the parliament, but you can also work in an NGO. And if you look at the business side, there are so many positions opening up right now regarding all the compliance with the CSRD, regarding all the sustainability managers that we're searching. Sustainability communication is getting a very important topic because it's so challenging to express that you're acting sustainably without being accused of greenwashing or being a green husher who is too scared of showing what they're actually changing right now. So I think it's especially about what you want to do out of your own pathway. If you're very brave and if you're a person who's good in like trying to make a decision, then I think you're in the perfect study program because you have a lot of opportunities. You just have to focus on the ones you really want.
Perfect. I mean, I think you hit a lot of important bases there. And I feel like just because of the breadth of your course, there's so many potential paths I can see you taking in about 2 years from now when you head into your master's and when you head into the world of work. Want to come back to your university specifically, Leuphana. So far at Leuphana, what has been one of the most enjoyable aspects of attending the university? And what has been one potential drawback or limitation of attending the university?
All right, I have two aspects. And the first one is something I already mentioned a bit in the beginning, because you have so many different opportunities to get to know the people. We have a campus university, so everyone is staying at the same place. It's a very small city with about 70,000 inhabitants. So with a college with 10,000 students, most of them living here or in Hamburg, it's still like very dense. So you go on street. Yesterday I was on street after my exam with some friends, and at every restaurant I pass, I've seen some friends eating with their family or other friends and greeted them. So it's just like a very close family, and you're forced to get to know people from other majors. As I already mentioned, in our opening week, in our first semester, we get to know people from all other degrees. So you have a very broad view with very different perspectives of different people. And I think this is something that lacks at a lot of other universities where you have like 200, 300, 400 people studying exactly the same subject so that you're always in your same peer group. That's the first one.
Yeah.
The second one is actually even more important for me because, as I already mentioned, I travel a lot. At the moment, I think I travel like 50, 60, 70% of my time.
Wow.
And for this, I need a very flexible study program and very open and communicative professors. And I have the privilege that my university have very small courses, so I can get to know all of my professors personally, and I can choose them very flexibly. So for me, it's possible at the moment to travel at 3 or 4 times of the week without losing one lecture. And if I lose one, I can structure it in a way that it's really just like one lecture and not like 5 lectures at one day that I have to miss. And this is a very unique privilege that I'm very thankful for. I'm aware of this concept being not applicable to all the colleges because many people are also asked and required to be at every lecture they have to be.
Yeah.
I think this is opening up a very different topic that is also very big to discuss.
And in terms of any specific limitations or drawbacks that come to mind of being a student at Leuphana?
Oh yeah, limitations and drawbacks, we also have some, and they are very important to mention because these are things you wouldn't consider in your first semester and also not in high school. So it's like this interdisciplinary approach and this different study concept means that I have a lot of credit points in modules that have nothing to do with the things I want to study in my master. So in several masters, especially in Germany, it can be pretty challenging to get into the master application process without having enough credit points for the specific topic. So you will have to get some extra credit points at this university or at the university you want to study or somewhere else. For me personally, this would be an amazing opportunity because then you have another reason to study at another university and get experiences. That's like my mindset. But I'm also aware of the people that are saying that this is more time they have to study, so it's more expensive for them, it's not cheap enough for them, or it's also requiring a lot of time capacities that they don't have and they don't want to spend. And it's something they were not aware of when they started to study this program. So it's like a compromise they didn't accept it in the beginning. So I think this is something very important to mention because for me, it's not really a drawback, but it can be a real drawback if you're like having your plan in mind and are not willing to change this plan for the study program.
Interesting. Yeah. So I mean, so for someone like you, maybe it's a great fit. For someone else who maybe is very clear that I want to do only this, maybe for them it's a different experience at the university.
Yeah, especially because you're also lacking a lot of knowledge in specific areas. One example, in geography, a lot of people work with GIS, Geographic Information System, I think that's it's called. And here you have like one elective where you can learn how to work with that. So if you didn't choose this one elective, you won't be able to be really like useful in these kind of jobs unless they are willing to like work you in, give you some training in this, give you some other workshops to learn it. So there is what the problem is starting a bit. So we are also like developing a list of possible master degrees and jobs you can get into with the study program.
But I mean, the flexibility is, I'm sure for someone like you, very much appreciated. I know that at my university and most other universities my friends go to, if we miss a lecture, we miss a lecture and we have to do the makeup work. Like it's not that flexible for us with professors in terms of rescheduling a lecture, ensuring we miss only one instead of five. So kudos to your university and they're doing a great job with allowing you that kind of flexibility. Are there a lot of international students at your university or is it majorly German students?
So this is also something where the university wants to improve a lot at the moment. So I think we still have like very few international students. In my study program, it's a bit different because it's especially meant for the internationals. We also have like a German counterpart with very similar requirements. There's also something that you can question, like we have two study programs that are so similar, why are they not like the same? But this is a different topic as well. But it's very nice because we have a lot of different international perspectives included in my study program at least. But I think we are still facing the same challenges as other universities, that it's very hard to have like this connection between the German students or the local students and the foreign students. Because I think usually it's much easier to, like if you want to make a joke or something, to make it in the situation and language you're feeling home with, your mother tongue. So it's hard for internationals to integrate in every group, and then it's much easier to stay with the other internationals that are also like forced to speak in English. So I think this is like something that should still be fixed, and I'm still thinking about how to make university more inclusive also in other countries and other universities, because this is like a general problem of like what is easier to do in this situation. And for me, for example, I'm always switching to English if I realize that there are internationals in the room, even though I'm not even talking to them, just to make sure that if they want to join in, they're directly able to understand the joke I made or something. And even I'm forgetting this sometimes, unfortunately. So
yeah, it's tough to remember, but I think that's a great approach. Even like, let's say in my case, I do the exact same thing as you, which is that even if I'm talking to an Indian student, I'm in a conversation with them in my university, I love to speak in English just so that if next to us there's a Russian student, he's understanding what we're saying, and if he wants to join the conversation, he can. So unless it's just me and the Indian student and there's no one else in the room, then I might switch to our mother tongue. But I think just generally, the first step towards a better interaction with someone from a different country and culture than you is to switch to English and not try and like continuously come back to your native language, because that's difficult for them to connect to. So I love that you're making that move. I think that's very important for any listener who's going to be studying anywhere in the world in terms of dealing with international students or students from a different culture. Um,
Mhm. And maybe that's also important to mention, because that's something very nice. It's a very alternative university, a lot of very open people. So the people are really trying to integrate the internationals as good as they can. At least from my impression, I'm
mm,
not that many times on campus, so maybe I'm also a bit biased. But at least in my view, I have the feeling that they're trying their best to make the internationals feel as welcome as possible, and there are a lot of different programs and an international office doing a lot of for them. But yeah, maybe we should ask our international students for the next time so that they can give their opinion on this as well, if my impression is correct or not. So
yeah, for sure. And I'm sure like this is, I've only heard of the bigger German names. Leuphana is not a name that comes across too commonly. And let's say if I am discussing German universities with someone in India, but I'm really glad we're having this conversation because it seems like a new, upcoming, innovative, alternative approach to education compared to a more traditional German university. And I definitely have friends who are interested. Like for them, Germany is one of the countries. I have friends who are deep into mechanical engineering or automobile engineering. Maybe this is an interesting option to consider. Um, so I'm really glad we're putting this out there. In terms of the application process, I would love to. I know it's very different from like the application process for me at a US university, but I would love if you could briefly walk us through what was the application process like for you to apply to Louisiana.
so from all the things I remember, I know that I had to make a language test because I needed to prove that my English is good enough for this international program. In the German version of the program, that's also taught in English, it wouldn't have been a problem, but for me, it was like necessary to make this one. And I would recommend to everyone to make these language tests earlier, or to finish their like degree in high school in English, so that they already have this proof of like good English for this, so they don't have to make a test. At least in Germany, this is the way you can go as well. And after that, I had the opportunity to not just hand in the grades from my school, but also to include some bonus points for extra activities. For example, they adjusted it now. I checked it yesterday for this podcast actually, and I found out that it's much easier now in this case. So you can not just get points if you're very successful in sports or politically active. You can also get points for being very good at languages, for winnings like very special competitions in school because you're very smart in chemistry or maths. So there are a lot of different ways to get extra points. And if this is still not enough, there's also the opportunity at Leuphana to get into selection interviews where you can try to prove yourself, and they are combined with a test. So there are like a lot of different approaches to get bonus points. And I'm not sure how balanced the system is at the moment.
Hmm.
So I'm not sure how much it is supporting, but at least I can see that it's supporting because I was attending the last like selection interview process as a part of our faculty, and all the people I got to know there got into the study program afterwards. And it's a study program with the same numerus clausus. I'm not sure if you're calling it the same at Minerva.
Different, same idea.
Yeah, so with the one of medicine, and in Germany, it's almost impossible to get in medicine. It's equally impossible to get into my study program by your grades, but you have so many different options. If you have work experience, if you made all these other activities, you get so many bonus points that it's really balanced in this case. And I'm very glad and thankful for that, and appreciating that the university is making this effort, because it costs them a lot of money and time. I'm also involved in this process, and it's tough.
Mm. Yeah, I'm sure. No, I'm super glad that your university has this concept of the bonus points and they care about a lot more than just academics, because it's very easy for a university to just be looking at grades. But if a university is going and taking the extra effort to look at extracurriculars, to look at different activities, I feel like the students will benefit, because you, when you're interacting with your classmates, they will not just be like class toppers, but they will be very interesting people who are involved in different projects, who have traveled the world, who are involved in different clubs. So a senior explained to me very nicely that if you have two options, you could go to university A where everyone has got like 100 on 100 in grades and done nothing else, versus if you go to university B where everyone has got like 75 or 80 on 100, but they've done like a lot of different activities beyond school. Which kind of people are more interesting in your opinion to go to university with? So like,
Oh, I love that question because it's actually the one that I've been asking myself for months now for my master's degrees. And actually, at the moment, I'm more tending to the second option. And I have like two main reasons for this. The first one is that I want to make sure that I get to know as many perspectives as possible.
hmm,
And I think I'm already quite privileged through my scholarship that I can get to know a lot of people that are already like studying at Ivy League universities, at Cambridge, whatever, and making wonderful experiences. But I mean, I'm already talking to people from this peer group, but I want to talk from people from a lot of different peer groups as much as possible. And I think this is much more meaningful for me if I get impressions from different countries that are not like the typical ones to study,
hmm,
like maybe some interesting country in Asia or in Northern Africa. I'm still thinking about it, but I want to get like a very new experience that is very different from my European biased perspective and my
hmm,
Western view. And so for this, it's actually the second option. And the second reason for me is also something that has to do about how to approach your college life. Because I have the impression that many people tend to focus on their grades as something that they have to achieve to have a good grade. But in the end, the reason to study is that it should prepare yourself for a good job, for a good working life, that you can change something and get money for this. That is also like stabilizing your life and your family. And if you're able to get this without having a perfect grade in every single subject,
hmm,
then it makes sense to question if it's worth it to put all the efforts in this specific subject, for example, even though you hate it and you will use nothing of it in your working life, instead of like doing something else in the same time that is really changing your perspective or
hmm,
broadening your network, getting to showing you something very interesting at a conference, at another kind of event. And this is something I'm trying to teach more people now because I mean, sure, for some things it's really important to focus on grades, and I don't want to make people feel like, okay, I shouldn't care about it anymore. But I think sometimes it makes sense to question if this grade is really the one that is changing or like contributing to your working future. And in my case, it's not.
hmm,
And I'm one who's very focused on grades, and I'm trying to reduce it now. And my last grades haven't been the best yet. And I'm fine with that because I know that all the jobs I'm doing have nothing to do with my grades because they're self-employed. If
hmm,
you're not self-employed, then maybe it makes sense to think a bit more about the grades. But if you're more involved in things that are usually freelancer jobs, then the people will ask for your interesting experiences. And these are experiences that you can't earn when you're sitting in your room learning. These are experiences that you learn when you use this time to make something exciting, make something unique that no one ever did, you know?
hmm. For sure. Like experiences over just the numbers, like always will be more valuable, I think, even to an employer. Like I know you mentioned that grades are important for an employer. I know that like I was in San Francisco for the entire year. Um, a lot of my friends applying to tech internships. For them, honestly, just passing is enough. On the side, all that time which they're saving on studying, they're spending their time coding, building very interesting tech projects, building on their GitHub, building on build space. And that is so valuable to an employer to see that you've not just learned the stuff, but you can apply it in the real world. And that's only going to come through your projects and experiences and clubs. So I love this deep dive into grades. I know in high school, too many of us like just have this mentality that grades are everything. Like even and then when we apply to colleges, especially in the US, we realize that they care about so much more than just grades. So I feel like they were breaking this mental limitation of just grades being
Mm,
everything.
yeah.
And I think to become a more interesting person, the more time you spend outside the classroom is the last thing I'll say. Like the more, like in your case, the more time you spend traveling, meeting interesting people versus just head buried in a textbook, you can have a conversation with me, which somebody who's just been studying for the last 2 years might not be able to have such an intellectually stimulating conversation, which we are having because we're able to talk through your experiences, your travels to China, etc., etc. Um, so love that deep dive. I wanna ask you a more higher macro level question, kind of unrelated to what we've been discussing up till now. But if you were to speak specifically to international, non-German students who are listening to this podcast, do you think there are specific good reasons to come to Germany and study versus any other country in the world? Like what's attractive about Germany for an international student?
Well, so I think one of the main reasons for this is the infrastructure. Because even though infrastructure in Germany is being criticized, especially in all the political discussions at the moment, we still have a pretty nice infrastructure for living. I mean, you're in the heart of Europe, so you can get into every country you want, and it's really nice. I'm experiencing it right now at the European Championship because I'm like, oh, okay, makes sense that they have so many local fans from their home country because they're so close located to Germany. And this is something you can observe for so many countries. You can travel to France, you can travel to Austria, to Denmark, Poland, and to Germany itself as well, because Germany is pretty beautiful in many areas and you have a lot of train connections, so you can travel sustainably while visiting a lot of different locations here. I think this is like something very lovely, and even though your train is late sometimes, well, pretty often, you still get into very beautiful regions for very few money, especially as a student. And I'm not sure about the tuition fees for internationals, because I think some programs are like, okay, for internationals that are at least non-EU students, they have to pay a few. But I think like EU students can get cheaper programs or for free programs like the German ones. And this is very beneficial. I think it makes kind of a big difference if you have to pay like 50, 60, 70,000 per semester or per school year instead of like 500 euros per semester for your semester ticket and the initiatives at college. And this is really, really nice.
It's a great, I think also a great option. It's a great option for international students anywhere. I think I have friends who are in Germany doing very interesting programs and enjoying their time. But I think especially for an EU student, in terms of access, in terms of logistics, visas, cost, Germany is a good option to study in. And I'm you're still an economic hub in the world today, like I won't deny.
Yeah, and it's so interesting because in Europe we have such amazing programs regarding like traveling and making experiences. One is called Erasmus Plus, and it's usually known for paying your exchange semesters and your studies abroad. But there's something many people are not aware of. They're so-called Erasmus Plus projects that are funded by this program as well, and where you can travel for like 1 week to Croatia or to Poland and get experiences about a topic. For example, like how to use film industry and how to use video editing for communicating sustainability or gender diversity or other topics. And it's so cool because it's like traveling for free, getting to know a new country, getting to know international people from all over Europe, and learning something really beneficial about sustainability, about democracy. And I really love these programs. They're like Telegram channels and Instagram groups and everything where you can get overviews of them. And it's like one of my best recommendations so far.
That's a good recommendation. I'm sure people might be listening to the episode and parallelly Googling Erasmus Plus because maybe it's the first time they're hearing it. I know when you mentioned it to me for the first time, I Googled it and I dived a little bit deeper. But very useful recommendation. They have some great programs, so please check it out, especially in the EU region. Um, if you were to wrap up this first section of the episode, we've touched on already a lot of important ground. We've touched upon your course, your university, why studying in Germany, the this whole conundrum of breadth versus just focusing on one subject. You've shared some of your thoughts on that. I feel like asking you another question again on this first section, and just another very high level question. But I'm just curious what you think here.
Mhm.
What do you think the purpose of university is? Like, why go to university?
Ooh, I think many people tend to like change their view on what university is really about. Because for me, it's about self-development and reflecting about life and society and all the things we want to change. We have so many ideas at this time of our life. We
Mm.
have so many ideas of how society could look like and what we should change. And that's why all the revolution starts with students and powerful people, like this combination. And I think that this is like the main reason why university is there to like use this love for knowledge and scientific thoughts to put it into something that is beneficial for society. And I think many people are using university just like as a starting point to get things done and to be faster and reaching their goals. And this is all right. For many people, this works out, but I think this makes it like kind of a shitty experience because you're not there to study, you're just there to pass your exams. And I mean, why are you at university if you're not like fully embracing this university experience with meeting all these friends, meeting all the people on campus, discussing with your professors about crazy ideas and societal theories that have never been established in society and all this interesting stuff, because this is like the time in your life where you can really embrace these questions and discuss about them because you're not busy working the whole day. Yeah, I think people have to take this time for them if they want to. If they don't want, that's also fine. But yeah, I really like this about university.
Lovely. I think being intentional is important. Even a decision as simple as, like, let's say in India, going to the US is just like a wow factor. Like, oh, you're studying in the US, or oh, my son is studying in the US is just amazing. I'm very proud of this person.
Mm.
But I feel like every decision, no matter how simple it seems, needs to have a thought process behind it. Firstly, university. Why are you going to university? What do you want to get out of it? Why will not? How will not going to university result in a different experience in terms of your life and your career? Why the US, or why Germany, or why whatever country? Why the course? Like in your case, why sustainability? For someone else, why computer science? I think just thinking through and being able to write down a few good reasons why you're doing something will also give you clarity in terms of what am I trying to get out of this. Like in your case, you're clear that for you, it's not just about being the top student and acing all the exams. For you, university is about, as you said, meeting these people and engaging in these projects, talking to professors about cool ideas. So that's what you'll spend your time in versus sitting and studying with a textbook. So being clear on that, you know where to put your time into. So I think it's important to, like, before starting the journey, like sort of begin with the end in mind.
And maybe to wrap this up, another comment, because as a spokesperson at the German Academic Scholarship Foundation, I talk a lot to the president of like the scholarship in Germany,
Mhm.
and he also like raised this idea of, guys, now is the time where you can have a lot of broad knowledge about so many different topics. You will never have this time again to get so deep into so many different things, because there will be this time in your life where you have to specialize on something if you want to earn money with that. So it's really, really like meaningful, and it can be really inspiring to embrace this time where you can do all this stuff. And yeah, I think this is something that we could learn from him. And
Mm.
he's a professor at a very, very renowned university here in Germany with a lot of like other prizes he won, and even him in a position where you think that he's doing nothing else than like following one goal and another goal. Even him is like, okay, you have to get this variety of knowledge, get inspired by things, yeah,
Mm.
cheer this beauty of knowledge and learning.
Yeah, yeah. Learning for the sake of learning. I'm going to push you even further because I'm sure people are listening to this episode and maybe still a little apprehensive or a little bit unconvinced about why it's like someone knows that they just like this one field, computer science or business, and they just want to do that, and they don't care about that breadth of knowledge. I want to dive deeper into this with you. Why is it important to have that breadth of knowledge? Not only for someone like you, but for anybody.
Actually, I have a very fitting concept or model regarding that, and it's called like T-shaped skills. And this is something I also learned from techies. In Germany, we have a so-called tech lab
Mm-hmm.
foundations, and they teach people about IT. I'm not sure if they're also international. I think they're mainly working in Germany. And they are also teaching people about how to establish like your first skill, like the one role where you're very, very good in, and we have a lot of expertise in it. And then you try to bring it together with other skills from other areas, like the little ends of the T. Like you have the one thing where you're very good in, and then the other little ends where you're very interested in, not as deep inside the topic, but still very interested and good. And with that, you can have a lot of different situations where you can apply your knowledge because you can transfer it to other conditions and other contexts. And I think this can be very important in a complex world as this one here. With all the technology we acquired in the last centuries, or not centuries, decades, I'm sorry, we have so many different options about how to manage and deal with the world that it's really, really important to have knowledge about more than just one topic in order to be compatible with others.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm seeing the T. So you've got the
Yeah.
one specific area where where you're specialized in, maybe in your case, environmental science, and you've got the horizontal, which is business, psychology, philosophy, a bit of whatever, data science, different other fields which complement the vertical of the T. Otherwise, it just becomes something that's standing with no sort of breadth of knowledge.
Yeah, for example, I can make an example from my study program experience. I mean, my expertise at the moment is about like this transformation in general and sustainability and systems thinking as like the major pillar of how to approach sustainable transformation at all. And my second focus, as in my minor, is how to apply this on human resources and how to make sure that you can make this transition really happening by enabling the people behind that to act and to change. So my main skill is about sustainability and transformation, and the second little bob is about human resources. And on the other side, it's about other things like business cases and how to establish this into an economically viable way. Yeah.
Interesting. And so that's a good example of a T. The T could look different for every single person. For someone else, maybe that sustainability and transformation aspect is part of this and not this. But I think that's a good example you gave. And it's important to start thinking about what is that T for you? Like, what is the one or two things you're specialized in? And what are those 5 or 6 things where you have some knowledge in which you can apply? That's a good concept. I'm going to be thinking about that a lot more for the rest of the day as well. Um, I will fast forward a little bit, and I would love to talk about the experience at university itself. You've done a few years at university by this point. You're coming into your 4th year, if I'm not wrong, at Leuphana. How have each of the years, like the first year, the second year, and the third year at university, how have they each looked different for you in terms of mindset, focus, priorities, approach? How is it different? Or, I mean, if you even want to tackle, how are they all similar?
Mm. So the first year was very similar to the things you see in TV when people are studying, like focusing on learning all the stuff you need for your exam, preparing weeks for one exam, learning in learning groups with friends and all the stuff. So my focus was really tailored to university and like 2 or 3 other social engagements I was able to do next to it as a volunteer. And then I had this application to Digital Seeds that I mentioned beforehand. With that, everything basically changed. So at this point, I started to like to talk to business leaders and to political decision makers, and this made me very interested in try out all the other idea competitions, all the other formats where I can be on stage, talk to leaders at the same level and not as like a young student, but as a person who has actually something to state and actually good arguments that I can discuss with. And yeah, then it started to shift a bit. So I tried out a lot of programs for my scholarship, like a lot of summer camps and summer schools, and then all these conferences and events.
Mhm.
And so everything shifted quite a lot. And now there was another shift. Now it's not like 50-50%. Now I'm really more focusing on all the work experience, and studying is more like I will explain it in a different way, because in the first semesters, I felt like a student who was working besides that. And now I'm feeling as like a self-employed
Mm.
working professional who is also studying besides his work, even though it's like nothing changing in composition, but it's changing in my mindset, because now I'm seeing a lot of opportunities and things I can learn from my study program that I wasn't aware of in the first semester. One very precise example, I guess you know this first slide of every new module when your professor is introducing him or herself to state what they've already done and achieved in their life.
Yeah.
Usually, this always felt like a very unimportant slide, because you don't really need to know something about a person if you want to learn something about the topic.
Mm.
But now I'm seeing all these valuable opportunities that you're getting from this. They told you what you can approach them for. They told you what are their expertises and the people they might know that you can get in touch with if you're asking them or talking to them about their experiences. And many people were like, oh, this professor is just talking about his personal life and not about the subjects. But the personal life is the one thing that just this person can teach you and no one else. All the other knowledge about the topic is something that you can look up in the internet, you can look it up in the slides afterwards, but these personal stories are the ones that are really unique and that make these professors so inspiring,
Mm.
because this is what they are like meant for. I mean, this is why they were put in this position, because they are so good in what they are doing. And
Mm.
yeah, I'm trying to tell this a lot more people, because this was like one of my major insights from looking back into my study semesters from before.
Yeah, that is so valuable. Um, Once you've got this insight, you know that XYZ professor has these passions, has done this research, is interested in this topic. Once you have this basic bio data of a professor, how have you then personally approached connecting with a professor on a deeper level beyond the classroom to form a more personalized, customized relationship with them?
So I think one major benefit that I'm already having in the study program that is just meant for 40 people at a time, I can like have a direct connection to them just by occasion. So just by sitting in the room, I'm already like having or building up a connection with them. And many of our professors are very approachable at our faculty, because sustainability is a topic where the people are very open to get into this connection with you and to get into exchange, because they all want that you will be a change maker someday, right? So they want you to make something out of the knowledge you have. So they want to support you and are very approachable and open for this.
Mm.
But I also have professors in other subjects, and it's still the same. And this is very interesting, because I think it's all about this openness and curiousness. If they see that someone is really engaging in the lectures, asking a lot of questions, contributing to the lecture and to the seminar with their thoughts and ideas,
Mm.
they're much more open to support you, and they remember your name, they greet you on the streets. And I think this is something that is much easier in these small peer groups. If you're studying at a university with 1,000 other people sitting in the same lecture, then it's much harder, but it's still possible, because who are the ones sitting in the first rows? Sure, usually these are the ones that are just meant to be like the high performers, but if you just want to get attention from someone, you can also sit directly in front of the view, because where will they be looking at? In the last row where they can't even see the people because the light is so dark. So this is like a first approach to get to make the people aware of you. And if you have a question, just ask them. I have a personal story for this as well. For this digital seeds program, we were developing a business model, and I asked my professor, if he can give me any advice on this, because he's one of the jury members of the German Sustainability Award, the most renowned sustainability award in Europe.
Mm.
And he was like, yeah, sure, let's go to the cafeteria, have lunch together, and talk about it. So he gave me a lot of his experience, he shared me a lot of his knowledge, and on the same time, it was like the first establishment of a deeper connection. And yeah, that's
Mm.
how it works.
You had lunch with a professor. Awesome. Kudos.
Oh, and another one, I almost forget it, but that's even more important. If you engage in college politics, for example, as a part of your faculty, as a representative of your faculty council, you have to talk to all of them on a very private level, and
Mm.
the people remember you. The people will approach you because you are in a position where they have to connect with you. Yesterday, I had lunch, or I talked to the president of my university because we are planning an event as our scholarship. And yeah, as the spokesperson, I have to talk to the people because I'm in a position that makes me be the one who has to find this dialogue and this connection.
Yeah. I mean, I'll highlight two things. First, from what you said, first, be memorable to the professor. Be that student who shows up on time, sits in the first row, asks questions, is engaged, contributes, disagrees with them. I'm sure they'll be happy to hear a differing perspective. Like, be that memorable student. And second, from what you've done, sounds like it's important to just throw yourself into opportunities where you have no choice but to interact with the professor. Like if there's a teaching assistant role, or if there's someone doing research under a professor, someone in like the student council of the university, you have no choice but to talk to higher management, to professors. And like that is an opportunity you're creating for yourself. So I love this deep dive we did. And I think connecting with professors is so valuable in terms of opportunities for the future, guidance, research, internships, even just personal mentorship. Like a lot of professors become personal mentors, even beyond just career mentors. I'm really glad we dive deep into this. I would love to have a small section where we talk about how you spent your summers at Leuphana. Especially at US universities, summer is about 3 to 4 months long. So it's a long stretch of time. And a lot of students are just confused how to spend that time. Even if students have internship, maybe those are for 1 month or 2 months. They still have free time on their hands. Part one to the question is, how have you spent your summers? And part two to my question is, do you have any creative ideas or suggestions for someone to spend a summer beyond just doing an internship?
There's so many other options, at least in Germany. I'm not aware of the options in other countries, but I already mentioned the Erasmus Plus project, but this is just like one tipping point of it. There are so many conferences that are trying to bring young people into the discussion and into the debate, to connect young people with leaders. And that's also a very good way to get to know your professors, because if you see them at every conference, you're just getting into touch because they know that you're also from the same college.
Mm.
And so this is like one very typical thing for my summers. I travel a lot from conference to idea competition, because then you have enough time to really focus on one competition without being disrupted by any deadlines and disturbed by them. And another interesting opportunity are summer schools. I've never tried one. I just tried like the summer academies from my scholarship. They are also very nice. Also like 10 to 12 or 14 days in another country. And another website I really like to emphasize is Opportunity Corners, because they're also offering not just like scholarship informations or internship informations, but also fully funded seats for different conferences or programs or workshops all around the world. And
Wow.
yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's good to practice if you're able to convince people of choosing you without making it dependent on your whole job opportunities. And you can get in touch with inspiring people, can
Mm.
travel together with them. And yeah, then the summer break is already gone. Mine is basically almost fully scheduled, and it's a bit crazy, but yes.
You're a busy person. I'm sure a lot of us don't have like that busy a summer break where everything is scheduled and planned. But as you said, there's a world of opportunities I will immediately after this episode check out Opportunity Corner. I'm hearing
Mm.
the website name for the first time. But there's a world of opportunity if you're just curious enough to go and do one Google search, is what I think about. I think it's more about self motivation and drive versus the lack of opportunities or information out there, which I don't think is a problem today. Um,
Maybe I have another life hack for this, because many people are like, oh my God, this conference costs about 1,500 euros per day. That's nothing I could pay as a student. And then I'm like, yeah, sure, you're not. And that's why you should tell them. Tell them that you are motivated and that you are very interested in the insights, and that you can prove to them that you are meaningful enough or talented enough to like be a very good contribution towards the success of the conference. And then go to them, be like, oh my God, I'm interested. Can you give me free tickets? I'm a student. I have not enough money for things like this. And many conferences will say yes.
mm,
Many of them are not fully booked because they have these prices and they invite a lot of people. Most people got invited anyway, so they are not even paying. So why shouldn't they invite you if you're a talented future leader that
mm.
they are also searching as like a new person they can recruit for their companies that are attending? So just try it out. Be brave.
No, absolutely. I can personally attest that what you're saying works. I was in San Francisco for about 8 months. We emailed people who were doing workshops and conferences that cost about $100 a day or $200 a day. There were events at Stanford, at UC Berkeley, which were paid. We just emailed them, expressed our interest, put in some relevant experiences like why we are a good fit for the conference, requested them that we are students on a student budget. Can we have free or discounted tickets? 8 out of 10 times they replied back saying we can figure something out. At least they're willing to compromise, even if not a free ticket, a discounted ticket, anything works. Like, please use this student tag everywhere you go. Ask for a discount everywhere. Let it get you the benefits, because you truly are just a curious young mind, maybe with not the budget, but you definitely have like the drive or the motivation. Uh, so I'm glad we touched on this. I want to go a little deeper into events and conferences. You spend a lot of time at different events, at different conferences, talking to professionals a lot older than you, I'm guessing 10 years older than you, 20 years older than you. How, very frankly, how do you get them to take you seriously? Like, you're just a college student, 19, 20 years old. How do they take you seriously? Or like, why should they take you seriously?
So first of all, I think the best life hack, if you have a beard, use it. I mean, yeah, I'm 21 since June, and yeah, it's always very beneficial, because if you start talking about all the things you already experienced and have a beard, then the people are already like, okay, yeah, basically he is one of us, so basically he will be one of the younger ones here for sure, but yeah, at least 25, 27 or something. So they're not even questioning how old you are. This is like very smart, but not applicable to everyone, so it's not the best idea. But what I experience is the best way to start are these competitions, because a lot of very big conferences offer these like ideation processes, hackathons, all these ways where you can really get the opportunity to be on stage. Because if you're on stage, the people have an amazing concept of how they can approach you afterwards in the lunch break and the networking break. If
Mm,
they have something they can talk to you and they have nothing they can talk to others, they will go to you instead of to the CEO of any kind of company and engage in the discussion with you first, because you're young, you're a talent, you will be one of the leaders in the near future.
mm,
And this is like very beneficial for them. And the second thing is to put yourself on the same level as them. I talk to a lot of celebrities due to my job, not just because they're celebrities, but also because they're having like their expertise in this topic. And if you don't try to make them feel like a celebrity, but you worth them as an expert, this makes a lot of difference, because I'm not someone who's taking pictures with them because I'm like, oh my God, I know you from TV. Can we take a picture? I'm more like, oh yeah, I've seen you're engaging in this and this topic. I think this is very interesting. How can I support you with that? Or how can you support me? How can we work together? And I'm trying to sort out these cooperations. And this is very useful because then the people are not thinking about you just like as a little fan, as all the other people in your age are behaving in this case.
Mm.
And the last thing is, like, I'm dealing a lot with how to make networking as efficient as possible. And here it's the same with the front row, but out of a different reason. Because the front row at the conference is usually the row where all the reserved seats for all the important VIPs are. So usually these are the CEOs of the big foundations, of the big companies, of like political leaders of countries. And if you are the one sitting right next to them or right behind them, because this is the first seat who's not reserved, then if they have something they want to comment about the conference while there's like a keynote or something, they will comment it to you. Because I mean, you know, people that are extroverted, they want to talk. If they are thinking that this is boring or funny, they want to tell it to you. And they will, even though you're the like 20, 30 years younger person next to them. And so they start engaging. And this is like the first icebreaker. They already feel comfortable talking to you. And like in the networking break afterwards, they will start talking to you because you already got to know them and it's much easier. And yeah, so you can get all started.
Yeah.
Ask questions.
Yeah, for sure. A lot of what you're saying is something which I also have to reflect on further. I can clearly see you've done some thinking about all of these different things, how to approach, how to maximize, how to make the most. So I personally am really enjoying just picking your brain and getting a lot of wisdom out of this. I want to pick your brain on networking a little bit more because it's a very big word, very scary word to a lot of young high schoolers who are getting into university. They know they have to go and talk to experts and professionals and professors. How do you approach networking? And do you have any sort of best practices or strategies which you want to share about being better at networking?
So for me, basically everything is about searching for the perfect icebreakers. Unfortunately, I forgot to bring my card and my wallet today because there are a lot of icebreakers that I usually include. Because I think in the end, it's just about making people willing to talk to you before you have to talk to them. And you can achieve this by talking on stage through these competitions as a finalist, but this can be a bit challenging and costs a lot of time. You can approach this by asking questions publicly in the plenary and telling them about your name or what you're doing before this, because usually they ask you to tell or introduce yourself first. So the people also have like connecting points where they can approach you. And after that, it's all about creating the room for discussion. Like just joining another table at the room where the people are eating because there's a free space, or maybe just openly telling, oh wow, I'm here without any friends. Can I join your table because I don't want to eat alone? Sometimes this honesty is already helping. And yeah, besides this, I use a lot of icebreakers like my name, because I mean, Shawn Mendes and Kylie Jenner have the same name as me. So this works out quite well. I can use my nationality as a Brazilian. I use a lot of different hidden like products in my bag, or I have a QR code on my phone where I can share our magazine, but also my contact details. So there are a lot of things that are raising questions, and every time the person gets hooked and is interested and has a question, the person will stay. And if they're staying, you have a conversation.
Yeah, you're staying, you have a conversation. Lovely, lovely. That's a good approach to networking. You touched upon a bunch of different bases, how to approach the person, what the icebreaker, how to start the conversation, and why they should continue the conversation with you. So you mentioned that Leuphana is a relatively new university. A lot of people, their primary concern, not a primary concern, but a secondary concern when entering a university is visualizing 4 years down the line, what's my alumni network going to be like? Like, what are the kind of people who I'm going to have access to or going to be in connection with after graduating? So I'm curious if in any way the alumni network at your university has helped or supported you. How have you reached out to them and how has the interaction been like?
So the main thing I really like about Leuphana that it's known in one specific area for a lot of things, and this is sustainability. So with my study program, I'm in a very good position at Leuphana because all the people know Leuphana for sustainability if they know it. So a lot of like known professors that invented the cradle to cradle concept for circularity, like Michael Braungart or Stefan Scheidegger, who established the first MBA for sustainability on the whole world.
Um,
Professors here, so it's very nice because at every conference I go, they are like, "Oh my God, Leuphana, that's so cool!" Or they're even in the organizational team. Like the magazine I'm working for is also like strongly connected with my university. They were also contributing to the like initiation of this magazine. The German Sustainability Award is fully packed with board members from Leuphana. The jury members are also sometimes from Leuphana as well. So everywhere I go, I just meet people that are like, "Oh wow, I know your professors," or they are from my university or made their MBA there. A lot of sustainability managers from German companies made their MBA at Leuphana, and so in my area, it's really beneficial. I think in other areas, like in schools or something, the people know that Leuphana is good for it and known for it, but it's not as famous or useful, I think, because I mean, 10-year-old children won't be asking, "Oh my God, where have you been studying at Leuphana? That's so amazing," right? So I think that's the benefit of my study program. Mhm.
Interesting. So it's well known for sustainability specifically. If someone's looking to do sustainability, then this is an interesting school to consider. Um,
Yeah, first faculty for sustainability, at least in Germany, I think even worldwide. First MBA for sustainability. So we are like pioneering in some different areas of sustainability for sure.
Beautiful. Um, I want to fast forward a little bit briefly and ask you a quick question on where do you think you're going career-wise? After graduation, what do you think you'll be working on? Do you have a rough idea?
Yes, so maybe that's also an interesting advice or insight because many people are just confused by what I'm doing because I'm dealing with so many different topics. I mean, I was attending the Fashion Week last week. The days before, I was moderating a competition for a sustainability building award, like for the building sector and industry and construction. The next thing was about like digitalization. So all these topics are very different, but they have one thing in common. I'm not focusing on a specific industry, but I'm focusing on the role I'm playing in all these different kind of contexts. So I'm further practicing how to be like a representative of things, a person who can motivate other people to change something. Like I'm basically like a change agent. Some people call it ecosystem enabler as well. And that's the position I'm trying to fill. I'm trying to convince and invite other people to get involved with sustainable transformation. And this is something that I can do in every topic or area I want. And that's my advice as well. Either focus on the area you want to go in or on the role you play in all the different areas if you're not sure which area you want to deep dive at first. So
That's fascinating. I understand the first aspect of either that's straightforward. Understand the area you want to go into, but say a little more about the second type of person like yourself who is understanding the role of of playing in different areas. What does that mean?
so I think many people know pretty well what they're good in, and maybe they also know what they're very bad in. And usually in group work, I have a lot of group work in my university, so I know pretty well what my typical roles are. And people are usually like, "Okay, go practice all the other roles that you are good in everything." But I think sometimes it's really good to embrace your strengths and to try to get better in these things where you're good to, and to stand up for them and be like, yeah, I
Mm.
know we could let someone else speak, but I am like very trained in speaking. So if you want to win this thing, maybe I should be the one who's speaking, and the other person is very talented in building PowerPoint slides. Maybe this person should embrace this strength, and everyone's trying to find their perfect role and make this team work.
Mm.
And I think sometimes when you really just want to learn something, it's also good to focus on other things. But if you want to find your role and your place, it can be really beneficial to focus on the things where you're really good at and try to apply them to as many different situations as possible. I've been a speaker for competition teams, like to pitch a startup idea. I've been a speaker as a moderator. I've been a speaker as a facilitator in workshops. So they are very different contexts, but they are always combined with my ability to speak, to make other people interested in something, and to make them curious, to make them wanting something they've never thought about before. And yeah.
Sounds good. Yeah, that gave me a lot more clarity. Wrapping up this conversation, we've touched on a lot of ground. We've touched on your university, we've touched on your course, we've touched on networking, events and conferences, we've touched on the importance of grades, and we've sort of dismissed the grades are the other number one most important thing for everybody at a university. We've touched on this very interesting concept you've brought up about playing to your strengths and focusing on different roles. I can't leave you without doing our iconic fast fire round of questions. So I just have a few quick fast fire questions prepared for you. Feel free to answer very briefly. One phrase or one sentence is more than enough. If you're ready, we'll get into it.
All right, I'm ready.
Perfect. Any one sustainability book which you'd recommend someone who's interested in the topic if they want to dive deeper into?
Yes, I wrote down the name actually. So it's called A Cradle to Cradle Remaking the Way We Make Things from Michael Braungart, and it's introducing you into circularity.
Lovely. The concept of circular economy?
Yes, right.
Lovely.
One of them.
The best piece of advice or insight which you received over the last few years from a professor at your university?
I'm not sure who gave me this advice, but I think it's very beneficial. If a concept of you for a startup idea or for an initiative is not working at this place at this time, try to find out different places, different countries or times or teams where the people are convinced by this idea and really need it, because maybe it's good, but just not at this place.
That's so important. Yeah. Just because it's not working right here, right now, doesn't mean like maybe a few years later in a different setting with a different team, it won't work. Like, don't give up on that idea if it makes sense to you. That's good.
Yeah, question the context before you question the idea. Yeah.
That's great. According to you, what's the number one biggest difference between high school and university?
So at university, you have the freedom to do a lot of different things besides that, and the people are taking you more serious. Like I already did a lot in school at events or conferences, but you're still like a child, and now the people treat you like an adult and take you a bit more seriously than before. Embrace that. Use these opportunities they offer you.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, when you're even as 11th or 12th grade, if you're doing something in school, it's sort of cute. But in university, when you're doing something, you're already an adult, you're an autonomous individual in the world, and you're almost ready to be on the professional path. Like I feel this is just the transition phase from childhood to adulthood or adolescence to adulthood, in my mind.
Yes.
Any quote which you would like listeners to remember even after this episode is done?
Yes. It's a German one, so I will try to translate it into English.
Sure.
It's from Eckhard von Hirschhausen. I met him yesterday as well. It's called You Can't Save the Planet as a part-time job if other people are destroying it in a full-time job at the same time. I think it's really inspiring because he used this as a starting point to quit all his other engagements and now fully embracing his power as a speaker, as a climate activist, and being one of the most inspirational voices in Germany for sustainable transformation. So cheers and congrats to Eckhard von Hirschhausen. He looks like my dad.
That's lovely. One piece of advice for making new friends at university, if someone is just very scared or intimidated by the whole process.
Yes. My best advice, because many people here are not doing it, live near to the campus or live in the same city. Because here many people tend to come from Hamburg. So every time they finish their lectures, they go back to Hamburg and stay in their old friendship group, and they don't leave their old home. So especially my recommendation is move out, move into the city where you live. So don't study too close to your old environment. Open up for these new experiences, and then you will have so many new inputs that will change your life so fast. It's crazy.
And I think if I were to stretch that thought a little bit, even someone who for some reason just doesn't have the facility to stay exactly on campus, even if you're staying close to campus, I feel like spend as much time on campus as you can. If you're staying away from campus, maybe you're staying with just a few friends. But I feel like the way to meet new people, make new connections, is to be as much as possible in that environment on campus, and that's where like serendipitous bouncing off of each other happens. Um, Lastly, in terms of the fast fire round, if you had an ideal study abroad destination, like if you could go anywhere and spend a year, continue university there outside of Europe, if I were to challenge you, where would that be?
Yeah, that's the question I'm still trying to answer for myself. So my first idea was Shanghai in China. My second one was in Brazil, and I'm just confused right now. I don't have an answer for that.
You gave me two answers, so I'll take that. Lovely. I mean, I feel bad to end this conversation, but unfortunately, I say this on multiple episodes that all great things and all great conversations, ultimately, we have to close them to an end, because after the conversation, there's a lot of reflection and introspection to do. There's a lot of wisdom we've touched upon on this episode. If you had to leave listeners with one final message, it could be a message of insight or wisdom or just a tip about university or life at large. What would your one message be to wrap up this episode?
Yeah, I hope it's a message that you've already felt in the last hour, but like really try to search all the opportunities you have when you're a student. I know many people don't have time for it, and that's no problem. It's all right. But if you're interested, go and actively take your chances that they get, because especially at the moment, especially in Germany, the people are searching for young talents. Use this value that they apply to you to make a difference and to engage in personal development.
Brilliant. Well, this conversation is coming to a close, everyone. Daniel, if a listener wants to connect with you or reach you, has any follow up questions, what's a good way to reach you?
So the best way is actually my Instagram account, because there I'm also sharing a lot of the events I'm attending. I want to invite as many young people as possible to make their own journey as well. So this one is Daniel _ JJMJ. Or you can also find me on LinkedIn or write me an email. So yeah, I think you can put it into the show notes, right?
Yes, we'll definitely link them in the description. And I hope people do reach out. Thank you so much for your wise words on University Unraveled. And it was such a pleasure to host you on the podcast.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun. Thanks for the invitation.
All right, that was the episode. To all the young listeners out there, I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned something new, and I hope you feel more energized, inspired, and curious for the exciting university journey that lies ahead. Stay tuned. Many more wonderful episodes to be released on Uni Unveiled across a diversity of majors, countries, institutions, and speaker profiles. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Uni Unveiled. This podcast is just a small part of a much larger initiative undertaken by my family called Serene Strokes to spread positive sparks of growth, transformation, and joy among all our audience. Check out our official website www.serenestrokes.com. In the description and comments, please feel free to share other topics and questions which you would love to hear about from our different speakers on this podcast. Until then, take care and remember that this big word, university, may not be as scary or as intimidating as you think it is. Thank you for listening to Uni Unveiled.